the Colonial Parkway in Virginia. It's a 23-mile scenic drive designed to weave through America's colonial history. It's a place of quiet beauty, made for leisurely trips where visitors come to escape and couples look for a moment of quiet seclusion. For decades, it's been a symbol of peace and American heritage, connecting the historic touchstones of Jamestown, Williamsburg, and Yorktown. Between 1986 and 1989, that peaceful roadway became a hunting ground. For 3 terrifying years, a killer, or maybe more than one, targeted young people in the dead of night. They left behind a trail of terror and a mystery that would haunt the region for decades. At least 8 people were murdered or simply vanished, their cases linked by geography and fear. This is the full story of the Colonial Parkway Murders, a case that baffled investigators, terrified a community, and has only recently begun to give up its darkest secrets. The nightmare kicked off in the fall of 1986. 27-year-old Kathleen "Kathy" Thomas was a brilliant and ambitious woman, a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy, who was finding her footing as a stockbroker. Her partner was 21-year-old Rebecca "Becky" Dowski, a senior business major at the prestigious College of William and Mary. By all accounts, they were a happy, promising couple, building their lives and careers in coastal Virginia. On the evening of October 9, 1986, the pair was last seen leaving a computer lab on the college campus. 3 days later, on October 12th, a patrolman was called to the Cheatham Annex Overlook, a secluded spot right on the parkway. There, pushed down an embankment and hidden from the road, was Kathy's 1980 Honda Civic. And inside was a scene of unimaginable horror. Both Kathy and Becky were dead. They'd been strangled and their throats had been slashed. Yet their purses and valuables were still in the vehicle, which immediately ruled out robbery. The killer had also poured diesel fuel over the car and the bodies in what looked like a failed attempt to set the evidence ablaze. The only reason the car wasn't a total loss was likely because the killer chose the wrong fuel. Diesel is far less flammable than gasoline. The brutal, personal nature of the murders sent a shockwave through the community. Kathy was a lesbian, and she was known to use the parkway's quiet overlooks for privacy with her partners. Investigators had to consider the ugly possibility of a hate crime. Had they been targeted for who they were, or had they just been in the wrong place at the wrong time? The FBI and Virginia State Police launched a massive investigation, but leads were few and far between. The parkway's isolation, the very thing that made it so beautiful, also made it the perfect place to commit a crime and leave no witnesses. For nearly a year, the case went cold. The community held its breath, hoping the horrific crime was just a one-time tragedy. They were wrong. Almost a year later, in September 1987, the fear came roaring back. 20-year-old David Knobling, a passionate outdoorsman, and 14-year-old Robin Edwards, who had snuck out to meet him, were last seen on September 19th. They'd started the night with friends, going to a movie and an arcade before planning to meet up alone. David drove his Ford Ranger pickup truck to the Ragged Island Wildlife Refuge, another lover's lane area not far from the parkway. It was supposed to be a place for quiet and solitude, but they weren't alone. On September 23, David's father found his son's truck abandoned in a sandy parking lot near the James River Bridge. The driver's side door was ajar, the radio was still playing, and David's wallet was sitting right on the dashboard, untouched. 2 days later, a search party made a heartbreaking discovery. The bodies of both David and Robin had washed ashore on the banks of the James River. This time the killer's method was different. Both had been shot. Robin was shot in the back of the head, execution style. David appeared to have been shot in the shoulder and head as if he'd been trying to run from his attacker. Investigators immediately saw potential connections to the Thomas and Dowski murders. Both were young couples attacked in secluded spots. But the differences were glaring: strangulation and stabbing versus a gun. Was this the same killer changing his tactics, or was there another predator stalking the quiet corners of coastal Virginia? The crime scenes were only a 30-minute drive apart, which suggested a link. But the evidence told a conflicting story. With no solid leads, the second double homicide went cold, and the region's terror grew. 7 months later, in April 1988, the case took its most baffling turn. 20-year-old Richard Keith Cole and 18-year-old Cassandra Sandy Haley were students at Christopher Newport University. On April 10th, they went on their very first date, hitting a party together in Newport News. They left around 1:30 in the morning. Keith needed to get Sandy home before her curfew. They never made it. The next day, Keith's red 1982 Toyota Celica was found abandoned at the York River overlook on the Colonial Parkway. It was only a mile or so from where Kathy Thomas and Becky Dowski were discovered. The scene inside the car was deeply unsettling. The driver's door was open and Keith's keys and wallet were on the front seat. Sandy's purse was there too. Bizarrely, most of the clothes the couple had been wearing were also found inside the car, neatly folded. But Keith and Cassandra were gone. A massive search of the York River and the surrounding woods was launched immediately. Police, volunteers, and the Coast Guard scoured the area for weeks, but they found nothing. No bodies, no signs of a struggle, no witnesses. It was as if the couple had simply vanished into thin air. Their families were adamant that Keith and Sandy would never have gone for a swim, and insisted both were afraid of the dark, isolated parkway at night. Keith's family pointed out that he never would have left his gold wristwatch, which was found on the seat. The theory that the killer might have posed as a police officer or park ranger started to gain traction. In some of the cases, the driver's side window had been partially rolled down, suggesting the victims may have been talking to someone they thought was in a position of authority. The complete disappearance of Keith Cole and Cassandra Haley added a chilling new layer to the mystery. They are still considered missing and are presumed to be dead. Now, the monster of the Parkway wasn't just a murderer, he was a ghost, able to make people disappear without a trace. The final canonical case hit in September 1989. 18-year-old Anna Maria Phelps was dating a young man named Clint Lauer. That Labor Day weekend, she was traveling with Clint's 21-year-old brother Daniel Lauer, heading from their family homes to start a new life in Virginia Beach. Daniel was driving his 1972 Chevrolet Nova, packed with his belongings for the move. They never arrived. Their car was found abandoned at an I-64 rest stop in New Kent County. Confusingly, the car was on the westbound side of the interstate, pointing in the opposite direction of where they were headed. The keys were in the ignition and Anna Maria's purse was still inside. Police noted that dirt and grass on the car's undercarriage suggested it had recently been driven through a wooded area. For 6 long, agonizing weeks, their families waited. Then, on October 19, 1989, a group of hunters walking along a logging road made a grim discovery about a mile from the rest stop. Underneath an electric blanket taken from Daniel's car were the skeletal remains of Anna Maria Phelps and Daniel Lauer. Because the bodies were so badly decomposed, figuring out an exact cause of death was almost impossible. Investigators couldn't even confirm if a sexual assault had taken place. However, there were apparent knife marks on Anna Maria's bones, which suggested she had been stabbed to death. So now there were 4 double homicides, 8 victims over 3 years, all young people, all attacked in or near their cars in secluded places. But the methods were all over the place. Strangulation, shooting, stabbing, and a complete disappearance. This chaos led some investigators to believe it had to be the work of more than one killer. But the circumstances, the victims, the locations, the staged vehicles all seemed to point toward a single, terrifying predator. For more than 30 years, the identity of that predator remained one of America's most haunting mysteries. For 34 years, the victims' families lived in a state of suspended grief, trapped in a vacuum of not knowing. The cases were turned into books, documentaries, and endless speculation online. Over 150 suspects were questioned and cleared over the decades. The families never gave up, relentlessly pushing law enforcement to keep the cases alive. Then, in January 2024, the silence finally broke. Using advanced forensic genetic genealogy, the Virginia State Police and the FBI announced a huge breakthrough. They had identified a suspect. His name was Alan Wade Wilmer Sr., a fisherman from the rural northern neck of Virginia. Wilmer's DNA was a direct match to evidence from the 1987 murders of David Mobling and Robin Edwards. It also matched a completely separate cold case, the 1989 murder of 29-year-old Teresa Howell, who was sexually assaulted and strangled after leaving a nightclub in Hampton. This put Wilmer squarely at 2 brutal crime scenes within a 2-year span. So who was Alan Wilmer Sr.? He went by the nickname Pokey and ran a small business called Better Tree Service. In the 1980s, he was a waterman fishing for clams and oysters. He drove a distinctive blue 1966 Dodge Fargo pickup truck and owned a wooden fishing boat named the Denny Wade. He was described as a muscular man, standing about 5 inches tall, and was also an avid hunter. Crucially, Wilmer had no felony convictions, which is why his DNA was never in the National CODIS database. Authorities were only able to get a sample for identification after he died of natural causes in 2017 at the age of 63. If he were alive today, police said, he would have been charged with 3 counts of murder. Months after that announcement, in mid-2024, the FBI informed the families of Keith Call and Cassandra Haley that Wilmer was also the prime suspect in their 1988 disappearance. While that link is circumstantial and not based on DNA, it places him at the center of 3 of the 4 double homicides. The identification of Alan Wade Wilmer Sr. has finally offered some answers in a case that has haunted Virginia for nearly 40 years. For the families of David Knobling, Robin Edwards, and Teresa Howell, a name has been put to the monster that took their loved ones. But the story isn't over. As of today, there is no forensic evidence connecting Wilmer to the first brutal murders of Kathy Thomas and Rebecca Dowski. Was he responsible for their deaths too, just using a different method? Or was another killer operating in the same area at the same time? And what really happened to Keith Call and Cassandra Haley? Although Wilmer is the prime suspect, without their bodies, the full truth of their final moments may never be known. The FBI continues to investigate, asking the public for any information about Alan Wilmer Sr., hoping to piece together his life and movements to see if he can be tied to any other crimes. The families continue to advocate, pushing for his DNA to be checked against other unsolved cases across the country. The Colonial Parkway has largely returned to its serene state. But for those who know its history, the winding road will forever be a place of chilling contrast, a place of tranquil beauty that once served as a predator's hunting ground, and a place where questions still linger in the quiet, wooded overlooks. The investigation into the remaining unsolved Colonial Parkway cases is still very active. If you have any information about these cases or about Alan Wade Wilmer Sr., you are encouraged to contact the FBI. What are your theories on the murders of Kathy Thomas and Rebecca Dowski? Share your thoughts respectfully in the comments. And for more deep dives into the cases you can't forget, make sure to subscribe.